There is an interesting quote in a Jewish source concerning David's writing of the Psalms. It is interesting. It was David the king, it goes, who, as he slept, had a harp hanging above his bed. As soon as midnight arrived, a north wind came and blew upon it, and it played by itself. He arose then and studied Torah and wrote psalms till the break of dawn. It is interesting, the Psalms are such a beautiful part of the Hebrew Bible, and I would like of the Hebrew scriptures, and I would like to read it in Hebrew along with an English rendition or translation and a summary application of its basic uh, interpretation, followed then by a New Testament application. So as we come to Psalm 2, it's a plot against God's anointed king. It reads, Lama rakashu goyim, uleumim yegu rik. Why are the nations in an uproar? And why do the peoples meditate a vain thing? Verse 2. Yet yatsabu malche eretz, berozanim no sadu yachad, al Adonai ve'al Mashiach. The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. Verse 3. Ninataka et moserotemo, venashlicha mimenu avotemo. Let us break their bands asunder. Let us cast their cords from us. Verse 4. Yoshe Bashemayim Yishchak, Adonai Yol'ag Lamo. He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord will jeer at them. Verse 5. Ajedeber lemo ba'apo uvacharono yevahalemo. Then he will speak unto them in his wrath, and he will terrify them in his anger. Verse 6. Va'ani nasakti malki al Zion har kodshi. Truly, I have installed my king upon Zion, my holy mountain. Verse 7. Asapra el chok. Adonai amar elai beniyata ani hayom yeliticha. I will tell concerning the decree. The Lord said unto me, You are my son. I today have begotten you. Verse 8. Sha'al mimeni be'etana goyim nachalatecha v'ahuzatecha afse aretz. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for your possession. Verse 9. Teruim b'shevet barzel, kikli yotzer tenapetzem. You will crush them with an iron scepter. As vessels of a potter, you will dash them to pieces. Verse 10. V'ata melechim haskilu, hivasru shofetei aretz. And now, O kings, be wise. Be admonished or instructed, judges of the earth. Verse 11. Ivdu et Adonai beyirah begilu beradah. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Verse 12. Nashku bar penya anov betovadu dere kiyev ar kimata po ashre kol Jose vo. I'm going to translate this, kiss the sun. Some translate it, do homage in purity. But I prefer to look at this as an Aramaic word for emphasis. Ben is the normal word for sun in Hebrew, bar in Aramaic. So nashku bar is the way I'm going to translate it. Kiss the sun, lest he be angry and you perish in the way, when his wrath is quickly kindled. Happy are all who take refuge in him. It is interesting as we look at this wonderful psalm. We've looked at Psalm 1, the two ways. Here we have the two ways that nations can go, the proper and the improper. In one, we looked at the two ways an individual can go, either obeying the Torah, meditating on it, meditating on the Word of God, or abandoning, going away from it. And the one is like chaff, the other is like a well-grounded tree, bearing fruit continually. Now we have the plot against God's anointed by the nations. And in the first historical context, it's looking at a king being coronated. And the psalmist is warning against the plot of rebellion which was going on, and encourages these kings to kiss the Son, to accept him, and serve him. And he is one who is going to rule the world and is God's begotten, so to speak, the one that he has anointed to be king. So stop the revolt. As I look at the New Testament, there is a threefold application. First of all, the kings are raging. And in Acts chapter 4, we have that same thought in the message of Acts 4, that kings were raging against the Lord and against his Christ, applying it to Jesus Christ and what was happening leading up to the cross and so forth. We then move on to this day have I begotten you. Today I have begotten you. We move from the revolt to God's determination the king will reign, and then we hear the word from the king. I'm going to declare the decree, Beniata, you are my son. I today, Ani hayom yeliticha, I today have begotten you. And my mind goes to the New Testament in Acts 13, where this text is quoted and applied to the resurrection in a sermon by Paul, and looking at the day when Christ was coronated, so to speak, the day of his resurrection, as the apostle applied it. And then ask of me, and I'll give you the nations for your inheritance, the uttermost parts of the earth for your possession, and you will crush them with an iron scepter. It is interesting in verse 9, applying it in terms of the New Testament, Teruim Beshevet Barzel. There's two words in Hebrew, Ra'ah, a double ayin, and Ra'ah, a lamed hey. In this form, Teruim could go either way. The Septuagint took it to mean you will shepherd them with an iron scepter. And that is quoted in Revelation 19, speaking of the return of Christ, who would shepherd the nations with an iron scepter, looking at his final judgment that Christ would bring. And so as we look at the threefold application of this psalm in New Testament thought, we see the cross and the nations raging against Christ, who is God's anointed. We then see, you are my beloved son, this day have I begotten you, looking at the resurrection, and applied in Acts 13 to Christ. And then finally, you will shepherd them with a rod of iron. And the shepherding looking at more of a judgmental side, that when Christ comes someday, he will judge the world. And the writer of Revelation, John, speaks of Jesus and quotes this text in Revelation chapter 19. He will shepherd the nations, 19 and 20, looking at his return and his judgmental work in the world. So I'm going to stop there. This is a great psalm, and it has, to me as a Christian, great messianic application in the New Testament to Jesus Christ.